All right, so, I like to dig into the psychology of trading every now and you absolutely delivered with this one.
Yeah, Douglas is the disciplined trader really is a classic for a reason, isn't it?
Totally is. So much of trading comes down to mindset, right?
Hmm.
Like having a system's one thing, but actually sticking to it when the market's testing you, that's the real challenge.
And Dallas gets that completely. He doesn't just tell you to be disciplined, which is easier said than done, right? He breaks down why it's so hard in the first place.
It's like he's getting inside your head before you even realize it.
Yeah, and he makes this point that the whole nature of trading kind of messes with how we're wired as humans.
How so?
Well, like we're used to this direct link between effort and reward, right? You work hard, you see results pretty straightforward.
Makes sense.
But trading, it's a whole different animal. The potential for quick wins, it can really mess with that traditional work ethic mindset.
That's where the whole easy money trap comes in, right? Like that story Douglas tells about himself being in debt but still chasing those huge wins instead of just taking the small, consistent profits.
Oh man, that story is so relatable though, right? It's like we all have this part of us that wants to believe in overnight riches, even if intellectually we know it's not always realistic.
Totally. And Douglas ties that back to our beliefs about money, too, right? Like how our childhood experiences can shape those beliefs even years later.
Exactly. It's like those beliefs become these invisible scripts that play out in our trading decisions sometimes without us even realizing it.
Like if you grew up hearing money doesn't grow on trees, taking small gains might feel almost wrong, even if logically it's the right move.
You hit the nail on the head there. It's like we have these money blueprints ingrained in our subconscious, and they can be really tough to break free from.
So it's not just about learning chart patterns and indicators, it's about understanding those deeper psychological forces that are driving our behavior.
100%. Which brings us to another really important concept from the book, the market as a mirror. What are your thoughts on that one?
Oh, that's a powerful one. It's like Douglas is saying the market doesn't have emotions. It's just reflecting our own back at it.
Exactly.
There-
If we're feeling fearful, we're going to see danger everywhere. If we're overly confident, we might miss those crucial warning signs. It's all about perception.
So our own mental state becomes like this filter through which we're interpreting everything that's happening, even if it has nothing to do with the actual price action itself.
And that's why Douglas put so much emphasis on self-awareness, right? Understanding our own strengths, weaknesses, even our blind spots, that's crucial for breaking free from those self-sabotaging patterns.
It's like we need to master ourselves before we can even attempt to master the market.
Which is a journey in itself, right?
Mm.
And speaking of self-mastery, Douglas also dives deep into the power of beliefs and associations and how those can totally sabotage our trading. Have you ever noticed that in yourself?
Oh yeah, big time. The example he gives about the free money on the street, that just blew my mind. It's like, why wouldn't you take the free money?
Right, that's exactly what I mean. It's like some part of us just doesn't believe it could be that easy.
But why though? What's the logic there?
Well, Douglas's point is that our brains are constantly trying to make sense of the world, right? And sometimes they create these mental shortcuts linking past experiences with present situations, even if those connections aren't accurate or helpful.
So it's like our brain is trying to protect us from getting scammed or something.
In a way, yeah. And those ingrained patterns, they can be really difficult to break even in trading. Even a single negative experience can create this association in your mind that a certain type of trade is inherently risky, even if it's not statistically true.
Wow, that's crazy. So how do we break free from those subconscious patterns then?
Well, that's something we'll dig into as we go deeper into the disciplined trader after the break.
So it's like we're battling these hidden forces in our minds.
Yeah.
And sometimes we don't even realize they're there.
Mm.
So how do we actually manage the Douglas talks about self-discipline, but it's not the typical grit your teeth kind of thing, right?
Right. It's not about becoming some kind of emotionless robot. It's more about awareness, shining a light on those subconscious beliefs and fears so we can start making more intentional choices.
So how do we actually start doing that?
Well, Douglas is a big advocate for journaling. Have you ever tried that?
I've dabbled in it, but honestly, I'm not always consistent.
Yeah, it's one of those things that's easy to say you'll do, but harder to actually maintain. But it can be really powerful, just taking the time to write down your thoughts and feelings about your trades.
Like what kind of stuff specifically?
Everything. The wins, the losses, those moments when you felt tempted to break your own rules. Those are the juicy bits.
The juicy bits.
I like them.
It's like holding up a mirror to your trading line. Getting those thoughts out of your head and onto paper helps you see them more objectively. So it's not just about what happened, but why you think you reacted that way.
Exactly. You start to notice those recurring patterns, those emotional triggers that might be leading you astray, and then you can start to do something about them.
So the journaling becomes this feedback loop, helping you create a plan for dealing with those knee-jerk reactions next time they come up.
Precisely. And that's where the real work begins. Because Douglas argues that you can actually retrain your brain to respond to the market in a more conscious way. Have you ever heard of visualization?
Oh yeah, like picturing yourself on a beach with $1 million.
Well, that's one way to do it. But it's more than just positive thinking. It's about mentally rehearsing different trading scenarios, including the stressful ones.
So like what? Imagine yourself facing a losing trade, and instead of panicking, you just stay calm and stick to your plan.
Exactly. You're training your mind to respond differently, even when the pressure is on.
It's like building that mental muscle memory.
Yeah.
So when you're actually in that situation, you've already been there before in your mind.
And just like any skill, the more you practice, the better you get at it. Douglas actually compares it to how people train themselves to walk on hot coals.
Wait, really? That's insane.
It seems impossible at first,
Right.
right? But by shifting their mindset, by focusing on the task at hand, they're able to do it.
So if someone can train their mind to walk on hot coals, imagine what they can accomplish in trading.
The key is understanding that this mental mastery takes time and effort, just like anything else worth achieving. And that's where Douglas's emphasis on self-discipline comes full circle.
So it's not just about having a trading plan. It's about having the discipline to do the inner work as well.
Mm.
The journaling, the visualization, the constant self-reflection.
Exactly. It's about showing up for yourself day after day, even when you don't feel like it.
Because ultimately, it's that inner game that allows us to execute the outer game effectively.
100%.
Hmm.
And by combining those two, a deep understanding of our own psychology with a solid grasp of market dynamics, that's where the magic happens.
It's like we become more than just traders. We become students of the market and ourselves.
And that's a journey that can last a lifetime. Speaking of which, we've talked a lot about how our own psychology can influence our trading, but Douglas also delves into the psychology behind market movements themselves. What are your initial thoughts on that?
So we've talked a lot about how our own psychology can impact our trading. But Douglas also dives into the psychology behind the markets themselves. What are some of the key takeaways there?
Well, one thing he emphasizes is that the market is basically a reflection of the collective beliefs and expectations of all the traders participating, right? It's like this living, breathing entity constantly shifting as those beliefs clash and realign.
Okay, so it's not just about analyzing charts and indicators. It's about trying to understand the human behavior driving those movements.
Exactly. He gives the example of support and resistance levels on a chart, right? Those aren't just random lines. They actually represent price points where a significant number of traders have made a decision based on their beliefs about the future.
So those levels become like psychological battlegrounds almost, with bulls and bears facing off, each believing their view of the market will win out.
You got it. And as those battles play out, we see those patterns emerge on the charts. Breakouts, reversals, consolidations. Each one telling a story about the prevailing psychology of the market at that moment.
I like that. It's like the charts become a lot more human and dynamic when you view them through that lens.
It's not just numbers, it's the emotions and decisions driving those numbers. And that's why Douglas emphasizes the importance of becoming a keen observer of market behavior.
Okay, so how do we actually do that?
Well, it starts with learning to identify those significant reference points on the charts, those support and resistance levels, those trend lines, those patterns that give us clues about the underlying forces driving price.
So it's like becoming a market detective, looking for clues to anticipate potential shifts in momentum.
Exactly. And once we have a better understanding of those forces, then we can start developing our trading strategies accordingly.
So it's not just about reacting to what's happening in the market. It's about trying to anticipate what might happen next.
That's the goal. But it's important to remember that no one can predict the future with 100% certainty. So that's where risk management comes into play.
Right, because even the best traders have losing trades. It's about managing those losses so they don't derail our overall progress.
Absolutely. And that's where that self-discipline we talked about earlier becomes crucial. It's about having the mental fortitude to stick to our trading plan even when our emotions are telling us to do otherwise.
It's so easy to say, hard to do right, especially when you see those losses piling up.
It's definitely a challenge. But that's why Douglas stresses the importance of having a clearly defined trading plan in the first place. Not just a set of rules, but guidelines for how we're going to navigate those inevitable market fluctuations.
So like having a roadmap for those moments when our emotions threaten to lead us astray.
Exactly. And the more we practice, the more those good habits become ingrained. And eventually it becomes less about willpower and more about instinct.
So trading really is a journey of self-discovery as much as anything else.
I think so. It's about understanding our strengths, our weaknesses, our tendencies, and learning how to work with them rather than against them.
Because ultimately, it's that self-awareness that allows us to make more objective, disciplined, and hopefully profitable trading decisions.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Well, this has been an incredible deep dive into the disciplined trader. So many great insights about the mental game of trading and how we can develop the self-mastery needed to succeed in this business.
Absolutely. And for anyone listening who wants to take their trading to the next level, I highly recommend checking out the book.
Agreed. It's a classic for a reason. And with that, we're going to wrap up this episode of The Deep Dive. As always, thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you next time.
Until next time, happy trading, everyone.